Welcome to the Technology and Energy panel here at ISH Digital 2021. Today we'll be speaking to another expert in the heating industry. Our topic today is industrial heat supply. By far the largest share of energy consumption in industrial processes is heat generation. And around 80% of large industrial plants are no longer state-of-the-art. I'd like to talk about these issues today with Thomas Wünsch. Welcome. You're a member of the BDH department Burners. Mr. Wünsch, perhaps you could start by giving us a brief outline of the issues that this department deals with. The department Burners at the BDH oversees the technical and economic interests of the manufacturers of firing systems. A major focus of our work is to analyze and implement the legal and political framework. The German federal emission control laws, as well as European and international directives, are especially relevant here. Of particular significance are the directives for gas appliances, energy efficiency, machinery and pressure equipment in the European Union. However, international guidelines and standards are also very important. So we are also active in the creation and development of technical standards. In Europe, these are the CEN standards. At an international level, we have the ISO standards. And of course, we also need to keep an eye on what's happening in terms of fuels. That is, in the framework for fuel supply, especially with the recent integration of renewable fuels such as biomethane and hydrogen. Of course, everyone is familiar with their home heating system, but we are talking about quite different dimensions here, with significantly higher energy consumption. Perhaps you could give us a better idea of the scale and explain the areas in which industrial firing systems are actually used. For scale, it's best to look at these two images. On the left, you can see a normal residential heating. It puts out about 15 kilowatts. That's an abstract number, but it's about enough for hot water and heating for a single family home. The picture on the right shows a total of 6 heating systems with industrial firings. Each of them has about 1,000 times the capacity of the home system, that is, around 15,000 kilowatts or 15 megawatts, as we usually say. That gives you an idea of the scale, but of course their application isn't limited to producing hot water, as in home heating, but there are many other things besides. The closest thing would be the steam boiler. These also heat water, but to higher temperatures, such as those needed to sterilize hospital instruments, and they are also used in other processes in breweries, paper mills or steam power plants. There are also processes that make direct use of the flue gases from combustion, such as for drying agricultural products or firing bricks for house construction. As you can see, the processes vary greatly, as does the output. We start at 15 kilowatts for domestic heating, going up to well over 500,000 kilowatts per firing system in some cases. In other words, a completely different order of magnitude compared to heating in a detached or semi-detached house. What proportion of Germany's end energy consumption do industrial firings account for? It's not insignificant. In the chart here, you can see a breakdown of the heating market based on figures from the Federal Statistical Office. We have a heating market totaling around 1,465 billion kilowatt-hours. Again, that's a very large abstract number. To use the example from earlier, we can say that this is approximately enough kilowatt-hours for 100 million single-family homes per year. Industrial firings account for about 40% of that.
Von diesem Bereich können wir sagen, dass in etwa 40% durch industrielle Feuerungen abgedeckt werden.
As we know, in single-family or semi-detached homes, there's been a modernization backlog for years. Politicians are complaining about this too, and we need to double the rate of modernization to achieve the climate targets. What is the situation in the industrial heating sector? Is it comparable there? What's the energy situation in existing plants? Yes, it's quite comparable, unfortunately. About 10 years ago, the German energy agency DENA carried out a study and determined that of around 300,000 industrial and commercial firings, only about 17% or less than one-fifth were state-of-the-art at the time. If we look at our unit sales and the technical development and upgrades that have taken place since then, unfortunately we have to conclude that very little has changed in this situation.
Müssen wir leider feststellen, dass sich an dieser Situation sehr wenig geändert hat.
So, major policy changes in this area as well. What are the current political and technical challenges for industry?
Beziehungsweise welche technischen Herausforderungen hat die Branche derzeit zu bearbeiten?
Ja, wir haben zum einmal
We have a legal framework. I quoted the Federal Emission Control Act earlier. This gives rise to the Federal Emission Control Ordinances. The first and the most recent 44th are especially important to consider because they set lower emission limits that we have to comply with. But there are also other challenges, for example in terms of noise. This is an increasingly important issue. Last but not least, unfortunately, some political actors are generally against combustion. We think that this is wrong, because industrial firings will continue to be very important. And we can bring about upgrades, we just spoke about the modernization backlog, only if the investors, that is, the operators of the plants, are confident they'll still be allowed to operate them in 10 years' time. So industrial heat generation is a very dynamic field in which you operate. If we look to the future, how do you think heating for industrial processes will develop? We'll continue to develop our products, of course. On the one hand, working towards lowering emissions, and on the other, we need to adapt to the changing framework. We spoke at the beginning about new fuels. The endeavor here is to make the fuel supply renewable. This means that in the future we will increasingly be seeing components such as biomethane or hydrogen in natural gas, for example. We have to be prepared for that. But we know we can do it because as manufacturers of combustion equipment, we have decades of experience in dealing with these sorts of things. Just as an example, 50 years ago, Mainz gas was widely available. It contains about 50% hydrogen, so there are decades of experience in that. You just have to make sure you can still access it. But that's not really a problem, because over the decades we've had to continue using some of these technologies in other markets around the world. This brings us to another challenge. We have increasingly fierce competition globally. Some regions are rapidly catching up technologically. This means we have to ensure we maintain our development lead and can continue to put the reputation of Made in Germany to good use, which is known for reliability, service, and also guaranteed spare parts supply. So you have a clear statement. The industry, the manufacturers of the large firings are well prepared for the future and, to use the catchphrase of this forum, are also Green Deal ready. Have I understood that correctly? That's right. We are properly positioned here. Industrial firing systems will continue to play a major role in the future because the supply of large quantities of heat, sometimes at very high temperatures, is basically possible only with industrial firings. Think about the cold spell we went through in February, when large amounts of heating had to be provided in buildings at the push of a button. With a well-maintained combustion system, this can be achieved from a standing start. You push the button and in 2 minutes you have 2, 5, 10 or 15,000 kilowatts available per system. No other technology can achieve this speed, reliability and efficiency. That brings us to the end of the program. Our topic today was industrial firings. We've seen on the one hand that there's huge potential for saving energy and CO2. And on the other hand, manufacturers are equipped to leverage this potential with their products. Mr. Wünsch, thank you for being in the studio today, and I wish you an exciting and interesting ISH Digital 2021.